Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Jeff Mosher, Adam Kaplan, and as promised, as delivered, we have a special guest with us for this podcast. He's going to be with us for the next 4 podcasts as we do our annual NFC East preview series, and we always do it with the man, Greg Cosell. For those watching on YouTube, you can see him right there. For those listening, say hello, Greg.
Hello, Greg.
Nice job. We got the
he did what he asked him to do.
We got the Abbott Costello routine down pat right away. Good stuff. It's been a while, Greg, so good to have you back on. We love doing this series. Our listeners, our viewers really love every year how we preview the NFC East with you. And there's been so much movement with all 4 teams. Some teams have new head coaches, some teams are on different quarterbacks. So this should be kind of a very exciting series that we're going to do with you. In this episode, we are going to start with the Dallas Cowboys. So I'm really excited about that. And we're going to go over all their moves, all of their potential scheme changes, player changes, everything with you, rookies, all that. So how much, just for the listeners here, how much this offseason have you spent looking at these NFC? Tell us how you do this, because I know you don't just watch tape, right? You watch like situational tape on a lot of teams and players.
I do. I jump back and forth between watching NFL tape and college tape, college players who will be in next year's draft. So I just try to keep myself amused, Jeff. You know, it's the off season. I have to amuse myself, you know. I feel like Joe Pesci in Goodfellas, you know, I've got to amuse myself.
Yes. Well, we're definitely here to be amused by you.
So, you know, normally that's what I do, but I also talk to a lot of coaches too. So I get a feel for, you know, how different coaches see different teams and their own team. So, you know, I kind of put all that together, and then we'll see what comes out of my mouth today. You never know.
Never do know. A lot of what you do is also situational, correct? As far as your tape study? I do. During the season, I can't do situational stuff. It's very hard for me to do that. I mean, I take note of situations when I watch tape, but I can't, let's say, pull up all third downs. I can't do that during the season. So I like to do a lot of that in the off season, but on each side of the ball, just because it kind of gives you a feel for teams. And also, the thing that's just really so helpful is if you're watching 100, let's say you're watching 150 dropbacks of a quarterback, one after the other, that tells you so much about the quarterback and an offense that's hard for me to do during the season when I'm trying to get through as many teams as possible each and every week. Gotcha. So that's really interesting. Well, I look forward to hearing what you have to say situationally about some of these teams, because you know, that's where games are won, you know, third down, red zone, that is actually turnovers. That's where games are won in the NFL. Before we just get into the Cowboys, Greg, I mean, Adam and I talk about this all the time. It's almost mystifying at this point that no team has won the NFC East in back-to-back years since the 03-04 Eagles. So we're going on. Wow. My quick math tells me 18. This will be the 18th straight year if the Cowboys don't win it, and we'll get to that in a second. But 17 already, the last 17 winners have all been a different winner from the year before. Is that not amazing?
That is a pretty, I didn't really think about that, but that's pretty amazing. Yes.
Yeah. So that's the challenge that faces the Dallas Cowboys at hand here, is try to be the first team to repeat in almost 2 decades, which is it's hard to believe, but that's what we've seen from this division. A lot of different moves, so a lot of things going on. I really look forward to getting into it with you. Before we do, we're going to stop. I got to remind everybody about our friends at Freestone Farms. If you want the best CBD at reasonable prices, go to freestonefarmscbd.com. Use the code ITB. You get 20% off at checkout. That's freestonefarmscbd.com. Promo code ITB for 20% off. Hey, everyone, we all know that there's a lot in common between excelling at sports and excelling in the bedroom or wherever you and your partner like to be intimate. But if you don't have the confidence to be at your best, it can affect your performance, whether that's on the field or behind closed doors. That's why BlueChew.com is coming to the rescue. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis,
but in a chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets help men combat all forms of ED. And because Blue Chew is an online prescription service, you don't have to worry about those awkward trips to the doctor or uncomfortable pickup lines at your local pharmacy. Blue Chew ships right to your doorstep in a discreet package. So just go to bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive prescription within days. That's the best part. This whole thing is done online. It's convenience you can't beat. Blue Chew's licensed medical providers will work with you to find the right ingredient and strength you need for your prescription. This is such a great alternative for those who hate taking pills. Blue Chew's tablets are chewable, easy, and made in the USA, which makes preparation and direct shipping very convenient. If you want a special offer, we got one for you. Try Blue Chew free by using the promo code ITB at checkout. You only pay the $5 shipping charge. That's bluechew.com, promo code ITB, all one word, to get your first month free. Guys, get your confidence back so you too can perform again like a star athlete. All right, let's start with the Cowboys and their offense. Greg, obviously, Dak Prescott in 2021 had, a really interesting season. I mean, he came out guns a-blazing. They scored a lot of points early. But when you look at this offense led by Dak Prescott and with Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator, who a lot of people like, did you see schemes last year? Did you see situations where you thought that pairing of coordinator and quarterback were just better than who they were going against a lot?
Well, Jeff, let me answer that this way.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that really stood out to me about the Cowboys from a year ago was the way they started the season. They ran the ball really, really well through the early part of the season, putting aside the first game, which I believe was the Thursday night opener against the Bucs, when I believe Dak dropped back well over 60 times. But then they got into a situation where for 4, 5, 6 weeks, they ran the ball with volume and with production. And, I thought that was the way they would ideally like to play, and then their run game sort of died. Obviously there was a lot of talk about Zeke Elliott, what he has left. There was a lot of talk about whether Tony Pollard should start getting more carries, and I guess we're going to find that out this year. We really don't know the answer to that question right now. But I think that one of the issues for me with the Cowboys, and I'm really curious as it plays out, is what their sort of balance is going to be. Because, one of the things in talking to so many people this offseason is, it's always easy to say, and we all say it, and Adam, you and I have had this conversation every time, we go to the combine and talk to people, is explosive plays,
Yeah.
They come out of the pass game. You got to throw the ball. But, and I've learned this, because I'm trying to keep learning myself, but one thing I've really learned this offseason, it's really hard to pass protect for 40, 45, 50 dropbacks a game. And I'm not sure a lot of people, including myself, until I've, started to learn more, started to think about the game that way. It's just really hard to pass protect because the defenses are faster. They're quicker. They play more with better athletes. Teams play more dime, and it's just hard to do that. And I think the Cowboys, obviously, they've got some changes on their offensive line. Tyron Smith is obviously back, ideally healthy. I thought Terrence Steele actually played really well at right tackle last year. And then obviously when Collins came back, who's not there anymore, Steele kind of got benched and played some left tackle, where I didn't think he was anywhere near as good. And it appears that they might be playing the rookie from Tulsa, Tyler Smith, at left guard. He played left tackle at Tulsa. I did not think he was ready at all to play in the NFL, but that's, again, just my opinion based on tape study. He certainly would not be ready to play left tackle. I'm not even sure he's ready to play left guard. So I think they have question marks on their offensive line. But I think, Jeff, in response to your question, I think, and I really like Dak Prescott as a player. I think he's a classic case study of just incrementally getting better and better every year he's been in the league. I think it's just too hard to ask him to drop back 40, 45, 50 times a game, not just because of him, because of the burden you place on your offensive line and pass protection.
And Greg, remember, he was coming off of a significant injury the year before, and yet they threw the ball. In fact, he had the same amount of attempts as he had in 19. Didn't put up as many yards, but the thing is, and this is his best year as far as accuracy, Greg, when he came out of Mississippi State, the knock on him was he's a seat and throw guy, not a lot of anticipation. Has he gotten better in that area?
Yes. And also there were questions about his ball placement. I wouldn't have called him scattershot coming out of Mississippi State, but I think that there were questions about his ball placement, because in the NFL, ball placement, you have to be precise. It's not just throwing to a guy, it's throwing where you place it when you throw it to that receiver. And I think he's gotten better and better and better. And I think, like I said, he's a great case study in just improving each and every year. And Dak Prescott's a quality NFL quarterback. Now, they have some changes at wide receiver, and that's going to be interesting as well, because obviously Amari Cooper is gone. They lost Cedric Wilson, a player that I really, really liked, and he's now with Miami. Obviously, Adam, as we've discussed in the past, they didn't want to dish out the amount of money that Miami paid Wilson. We'll see if that hurts them. Michael Gallup theoretically now is back healthy. That third receiver is going to be very intriguing. They signed James Washington from Pittsburgh, and James Washington never really developed in Pittsburgh. Then they've got two guys, well, really three. Noah Brown has been there for quite a while. They've not really used him as a receiver a lot. He often plays when they want to run the ball because he's a big physical guy and a really good blocker. But they've got a kid they drafted from Stanford the year before in Simi Fehoko, and then they drafted Jalen Tolbert this year in the third round. Those are both players whose college tape I liked a lot, and I'm really curious to see if they get meaningful snaps, because you kind of know what James Washington is at this point. So we'll see, and this is what training camp is for. We'll see if Fehoko and Tolbert, how they go through training camp, and whether one of those guys ends up being the third receiver.
Hey, it's Jeff Mosher from Inside the Birds. And guess what? I'm going to give you a chance to win some money just by testing your NFL knowledge. It's all on the new app everyone's talking about called Versus Game. And it's pretty easy. It's fun. You're going to love it. Here's what you do. You find Inside the Birds on Versus Game. And what you're going to find is me asking you a sports question, probably an Eagles question, but it will be a sports question. It's either a yes or no question or an either or. The bottom line is, if you're right, you could win money. Even if you want to just test your knowledge for fun, you don't even have to bet money, but there's always a chance to win some big bucks on Versus Game. It's a really awesome setup. It's an opportunity for you to not only test your knowledge, not only make some money, but Versus Game will pit you against another opponent. You can bet up to $1 to $100 if you want. It's just a great time. I suggest you start playing now. Find us on Versus Game at Inside the Birds. See the latest question that I've put up. See if you can get it right and see if you can make some money in the process. That's Versus Game. It's all one word, no space. And we'll be talking about the result of the question in the next Inside the Birds episode, along with introducing a new question. So go to Versus Game right now to Inside the Birds and find out what question we've asked.
So, Greg, if Gallup is not ready for the regular season, that's still up in the air.
Which is a possibility for sure, yeah.
Right. So let's talk about Fehoko and Tolbert. Fehoko is a bigger guy physically. Yeah. What kind of player did you think he would be coming out? X receiver because of the size. Where do you think he would line up?
Yeah, he's a big kid, Fehoko. And I remember watching him in Stanford because, obviously he played with Davis Mills. So I saw a good amount of him. And then I watched him, on my own because I thought that, he's a guy I really needed to see. But Fehoko to me is a big receiver who can run. And I think that's something that I think's really overlooked about his game. He can run really well. And I think that Fehoko could be an X, but I think you could also move him around. So we'll see. Again, last year, was he on injured reserve all year? Adam, do you know?
I
Or was
would
he
say
just a guy who didn't.
no, he actually went on the COVID list in December, and that was it. He just didn't really play because they had
Yeah.
Amari Cooper last year. There wasn't really, and of course Cedric Wilson, so there was really not a role for him.
Yeah, there wasn't, but he's got the size speed profile. Okay, he's 6'4", he's over 220. He ran a really good 40 time at the combine. You know, you wouldn't call him explosive, but that kind of size when you're 6'4" and the stride length and play speed. You know, I think he can work effectively as an outside receiver. I don't think he's a slot receiver. I think he's an outside receiver. He can run slants, in breakers, schemed verticals. He was physical both on his release versus press. Through his route stem, he was physical. He's a big body, and you know, I'm really curious to see if he can be a true vertical receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, I wonder, Greg, about their alignment, because when healthy and when on the field, Michael Gallup is a natural X receiver for them. CeeDee Lamb has
played,
and CeeDee Lamb has been just an incredible slot receiver for them because they've always had Gallup and Cooper, or they would put another guy on the outside. It sounds like Fehoko or even Jalen Tolbert are probably more suited for the outside as well. So do you see, does it make sense for them to keep Lamb in the slot where he has really excelled in that offense? Or do you feel like they'd move him to the outside while they look for that number 3 guy?
I think Lamb will end up playing in the slot because I think that both Fehoko and Jalen Tolbert are really outside receivers. You know, Tolbert's another guy who's long, he's athletic. I remember watching Jalen Tolbert last summer, you know, after his second to last year in college, and I really liked his tape a lot. And then, of course, I watched him again this year, and he's another guy. He's not as big as Fehoko, but he's long. And I think he's more of a finesse receiver. To me, Tolbert was kind of a smooth, fluid mover. I think he's an outside receiver. He has good size. He has length. He's got a little bit of a 3-level profile. I think he can get vertical. I think he's at his best when he has free access. Tolbert struck me as a Z receiver in the NFL. And the Z receiver is the motion receiver, the movement receiver, because I think given that he's not big and physical like Fehoko, I think you want to get him with movement so he can get free access off the line of scrimmage. He's not a burner, but he has build-up speed and acceleration, which at times can translate to being vertically explosive, but he's not sudden. So, you know, he's more smooth and fluid with kind of long acceleration as opposed to burst. So I think that ultimately Tolbert is a guy, to me, that strikes me. If you're going to, let's say, line up in 3-by-1 sets, and let's say Gallup is going to be your X, I think someone like Tolbert would be your number 1 to trips, and then of course CeeDee Lamb would be your slot.
Right. And James Washington, what was your kind of scouting report on him in Pittsburgh, and can it get better in Dallas?
You know, James Washington was one of those guys I think I was right on. I mean, look, we're right on some, wrong on others. Washington, when he played at Oklahoma State with Mason Rudolph, was a vertical receiver. And I did not think he'd be a vertical receiver in the NFL. I just felt like he did not really have the juice to be that guy, even though he was that in the Big 12, whereas we know defenses are not great. And it's kind of worked out that way. He's never really become a vertical receiver in the NFL. So at this point in time, Jeff, I'm not sure what James Washington is. And you know, I know Dallas needed a receiver, so they signed him. I certainly don't know what the numbers are. Adam might know that. It doesn't matter.
He was light. He was light.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he's going to beat out the other 2 guys. I mean, granted, Fehoko's going into his second year. It's almost like a rookie year all over again. And Tolbert's a rookie, so they have still a learning curve. But I would not be surprised if we see more of Tolbert and Fehoko than we do of Washington.
Greg, one thing before we move on to the defense, Tony Pollard on last year's rookie deal, he's been a good story development for a 4th-round pick.
Yeah.
When you look at his tape, do you think he's a guy who could handle volume? Was he just better as a changeup or in that role to catch the football?
Well, volume's a relative term, Adam, as you know. I don't think he's a true feature foundation back. I don't think you could give Pollard the ball 280 times, but I think Pollard could get, you know, 140 or 150 carries. You know, Pollard, to me, is and I hate throwing out names because you know how people respond to this stuff, but Pollard to me can be used like Alvin Kamara early in Kamara's career, when Kamara was getting, maybe 140, 160 carries, but is a really good receiver and really gives you a lot of juice on the perimeter. I think Pollard at his core is that guy. I don't think he's an apples to apples replacement for Zeke if they want to have a back that's going to carry 280 times.
I have some questions about this running game as well, Greg. So before I ask you that, I just want to pause real quick for a word from our friends at Manscaped. Gentlemen, all men strive for gold in their life, right? Gold medals, gold watches, gold everything. However, there's a certain type of man who goes the extra mile. He walks with the confidence of an eagle and giggles in the face of danger. He's a big, hairless winning machine, and when he unzips his pants, he sees platinum. That's right. Manscaped would like to introduce to you their best and biggest ultimate hygiene bundle yet, the Platinum Package 4.0. Manscaped is the leader in below-the-waist grooming. Now trust them with the whole shebang. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with promo code ITB. We all know how important it is in life to have a routine. You've got to have a grooming routine. And to do that, Manscaped's bringing you their Platinum Package 4.0. It's the biggest bundle they've ever offered with a bulk discount on Manscaped's top products. You got the Manscaped Platinum Package 4.0, the one-stop shop for the man who deserves it all. They designed this package to allow you to fully align your entire hygiene routine with their elite products, which includes their Platinum Package that has their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, their Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, the Ultra Premium Body Wash, Ultra Premium 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, Ultra Premium deodorant, Crop Preserver, Anti-Chafing Ball Deodorant, Crop Reviver Ball Spray Toner, Anti-Chafing Boxers, and the Shed Travel Bag to hold your goods while you're traveling. The Lawnmower 4.0 Body Trimmer and Weed Whacker Nose and Ear Hair Trimmer feature proprietary advanced skin-safe technology to protect your delicate parts and holes. Both are waterproof, so you can shave with less mess. On top of that, you can upgrade your shower routine with the Ultra Premium Body Wash and Ultra Premium 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. You'll have your skin and hair feeling hydrated and smelling fresh. And of course, don't forget to apply the aluminum-free Ultra Premium deodorant for that cologne quality scent on the go. And thankfully, their Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner can solve this problem for you. Once they touch your sack, you'll never go back. Check this out. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Platinum Package 4.0. It's the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Bring your comfort in boxers to another level. The Platinum Package 4.0 covers all bases from head to toe. It's the best bang for your shebang. So get 20% off and free shipping with code ITB at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use that code ITB. It's time you enjoyed the finer things in life. Get yourself a Platinum Package for your Platinum Package. Okay, Greg, I guess I'm a little surprised in that Dallas didn't really seem to view their running game as problematic by the end of the year, because they didn't really do anything from a free agency or a draft standpoint to upgrade it. So it's going to be Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. And I know the numbers say that Elliott wasn't bad last year. I think he had about 12 touchdowns combined and then 12 or 1,300 yards, 4.2 yards per carry. Just watching him, though, Greg, he looks like a guy who can still kind of get downhill through the line of scrimmage. But then when he gets into the second level, I feel like he doesn't turn on the jets the way you have the moves that he used to. I remember this guy hurdling Chandon Sullivan in an Eagles game where he just jumped over the guy en route to a 50, 60-yard game. But I didn't see a whole lot of breakaway or pull away second-level moves anymore from him.
I think the difference for me with Zeke, it's not the 40-yard runs. I mean, I would never have described Zeke as explosive in that way. Mm-hmm. Like we think of a Derrick Henry being explosive with long runs. I'm not sure I'd see Zeke that way. I think the difference for me with Zeke was a master to me at taking a run that looked like you'd get 4 and he'd get 9.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you saw that down the stretch. He'd get 4.
Right.
You know, he'd get what was blocked.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I can't speak to where he's at in his, with his body and, what he's doing in the offseason. I can't speak to that. But I think that to me was the difference with Zeke. Because Zeke, even when he came out of Ohio State, and I love Zeke coming out, who didn't? But I just didn't see last year that same kind of runner. He was that way early in the year. I don't know if his body wore down. I don't know if it can get back. We do know that backs that carry a lot over a 4 or 5 year period, sometimes they never quite get that little extra juice. It's a combination of juice and natural power. Because I always felt Zeke was a naturally powerful runner.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the sense that he'd run over people. That's the way people think of power, but that's not really power. You don't really see that very often in the NFL. You don't see guys just run over people.
Right.
I think power is more a function of finishing traits where you run through contact, so to speak, guys trying to tackle you, and you get those extra 3-4 yards, and it doesn't seem like much, but it is. And that adds up, and that also keeps your offense on schedule.
Gotcha. We didn't really talk real quickly about Dalton Schultz. He had a really good year last year, and I don't want to gloss over that. And they obviously made a decision in getting rid of Amari Cooper and some others to keep Gallup and Dalton Schultz. So what do you see in Dalton Schultz, and is he a match? Does he have sort of top 5 tight end potential in your mind?
I would probably say no.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a volume player more than a matchup player. Does that make sense?
Yes.
He's not an explosive athlete. I think he works really well in the short to intermediate area. Can he run the seam? Every tight end can run the seam if the defense gives you that opportunity, sure. But is he a matchup player in a strict sense? Even though they do line up in 1-by-3 sets where he's the single receiver to the short side of the field, is he the guy that when you think of the Darren Wallers, the Travis Kelce's, even the Dallas Goddards of the world, is Dalton Schultz that guy? I would say no. Now, that doesn't mean he can't be a really effective volume target in the context of their offense, but I don't think he's truly a matchup player in that sense. He's not George Kittle.
Right.
Even in his prime, he's not Jared Cook, a guy who could run vertically. He's not that guy.
Gotcha. Awesome.
All right. Defensively, under Dan Quinn, first question, Greg, I remember you saying that Dan Quinn, obviously correct me if I'm wrong, we've always pigeonholed him for running Seattle's scheme, but if I recall correctly, didn't you say last year that they were playing a lot more man coverage, which certainly would be surprising?
Dan Quinn made a clear adjustment in his approach. He was the guy that I think the last 2-3 years, I think he started to change gradually, and last year it became clear. If I'm not mistaken, I do not have the numbers right in front of me. I think the Cowboys played more cover 1 than any team in the league, certainly top 3 in the league.
Wow.
And they played a ton of man. And the other thing to keep in mind is they were a big nickel defense as their base. They played with 3 safeties. They did not play with 3 linebackers. They played with 3 safeties. Jaron Kearse was essentially a hybrid safety linebacker for them. And if you look at stats, they did not play with 3 linebackers. They played with 3 safeties. So those were the main differences with Dallas, is they played a lot of man coverage and they played with 3 safeties as their base. Then the next question becomes, and we can certainly talk more about this, is what do they do with Micah Parsons? I thought Micah Parsons was at his best as an edge pass rusher. But I don't know if they're going to do that. Could they do that in their subs? Sure. But I thought he was actually at his best playing on the line of scrimmage and not off the ball. But that's the way I saw it watching tape.
Mm-hmm. No, interestingly, they lose Randy Gregory to the Cowboys, and so, but they did not have DeMarcus Lawrence for most of the year last year, and then he came back. So you look at their pass rush right now: DeMarcus, probably Micah Parsons. They drafted Sam Williams in the 2nd round. Do you like Sam Williams for this defense?
I loved Sam Williams' tape a ton, and by the way, he was the only guy in all the tape I watched who gave Cross, the left tackle from Mississippi State, all kinds of problems. He ate up Cross. So I really like Sam Williams. He was surprisingly a second round pick because, and this is stuff I don't follow closely, but I know from talking to scouting friends of mine that he had all kinds of off the field issues. And there were, a lot of people said, oh, he's undraftable. And again, obviously the Cowboys chose to draft him in the second round because his talent is such that he was a second round prospect for sure. I mean, he's 6'4", he's 260. He ran exceptionally. His 10-yard split was that of wide receivers. So I love Sam Williams' tape. And like I said, he had some really strong edge pass rush snaps versus Charles Cross. He beat Cross with both strength and power, that one-arm stab that you see a lot with edge pass rushers. He beat him with lateral quickness. I thought his tape was really, really strong. They obviously felt the same way because you know what? They drafted him in the second round. So they see him. If you draft a player in the second round, you believe he's going to play for you this year. Now, he may not play 60 snaps, but they believe he's going to play. And the other guy who they signed, who's never become what I think a lot of people thought, given that he was a top 5 pick, but they signed Dante Fowler. So in their mind, I believe they think that they've made up for the loss of Gregory. Whether that happens, only time will tell there. The other player who I think is a really intriguing player for them, who got hurt last year and missed basically the whole year, is Jabril Cox, the linebacker from LSU, who is not a physical player at all, but a highly, highly athletic player. And I'm curious to see how he fits into their scheme this year.
One question on the front, Greg. DeMarcus Lawrence, now 30. We know he's had some injuries. We don't put a ton into sack numbers, but we have to mention it. They're down the last couple of years because the coaches will tell you they're big on the pressures and that stat. But DeMarcus Lawrence, your tape study, or what you saw for him last season.
I think when healthy, DeMarcus Lawrence is a really good player. I think he's a really good combination of quickness. He can play with some power. I mean, I think at his best, he's a really, really good edge player. Now, they started moving people around last year. Whether they do that again, that remains to be seen, because I think Gregory played a major part in that. They could move Lawrence inside because Gregory was a great edge player. So we'll see if they do that again. That could have been a function of the personnel that they had a year ago. Now, Odighizuwa is another player that I think is really intriguing. I think he's a really, last year was a rookie year. I think there's a lot there with that kid. He's predominantly an inside player.
That's Osa Odighizuwa, and of course, their bigger guy is Neville Gallimore, their nose. A couple of years ago, they drafted Tristan Hill. I think they probably had better expectations by now of what he would be after 2 years. But he hasn't factored in, I think, as much as they would have liked him to do. But
they also drafted a guy who it would not surprise me if he ends up playing meaningful snaps in their base. John Ridgway from Arkansas is a really good base defense player. He's a kid who transferred from a small school, played 1 year in the SEC at Arkansas, and had dominant moments inside. Tough, physical. He's not going to play in your sub fronts, but he's the kind of guy that if you want to line up and defend the run, he's that kind of player.
So when you went back and watched the Cowboys, and specifically from a front seven standpoint, obviously Micah Parsons stands out, but when you look at what they've got this year, does this look like a team that is going to be very difficult up front again, the way they were last year for opponents?
Yeah, and I think Parsons will be a stacked linebacker in their base because they just don't have enough linebackers. So I think, I just think when you go to sub, I think Parsons is an edge rush. I mean,
He's thought rush the passer.
I think week 10, 11, 12, by that point of the season, I said this publicly, I thought Parsons was as good an edge rusher as there was in the NFL. And to me, that's what he should be doing when they go to their sub. But I think because of lack of personnel, because Van Der Esch is still there, he'll obviously play one stack position. But other than that, they don't have another guy to play stack in their big nickel. So it's going to be Micah Parsons, unless they really think that Jabril Cox can be that guy and they can make Parsons a full-time DN. But my guess is that's not what they're going to do.
Greg, from your tape study at Penn State, what did you imagine or project Parsons to be at the next level?
I thought Parsons was a truly explosive athlete. I mean, he's 245. People may forget he was recruited out of high school as an edge pass rusher. That's what he played in high school. Penn State moved him to stack backer, but they did use him as a pass rusher at Penn State as well. So, I mean, it was hard not to like the athletic skill set. I mean, the guy is 245 and an explosive sudden mover. The question is, how does he fit best in the league? And I personally think his best trait is rushing the quarterback. And you can use him in a variety of ways to do that. It doesn't always have to be on the edge, but I think he's better at that than being a stacked backer.
That probably was the bigger surprise, right? Because even though just being a Penn State fan and watcher, and I remember how they used him, even when they blitzed Micah, I don't think it was always off the edges. I think he came through the A gaps a lot. Yeah, he was not a like, you're going to be an edge rusher when we blitz you type of player.
No, and he had some inside rushes last year as well, where, because what happens too when you rush from the inside very often is you can generate some velocity, because they didn't necessarily put him right in the A gap, let's say, right on the ball. They gave him a little room to run, and he is a powerful human being. When he generates speed and velocity, he can run over people, and he can run over centers and guards. So they did that at times with him a year ago. But again, because they just don't have people, he's going to have to play stacked linebacker in their base.
Right. All right, we're going to move to the back end a little bit. First, we're going to pause real quick for an important word about online security from our friends at Aura. Hey, it's Jeff Mosher. Did you know in 2020, 49 million Americans were victims of identity theft? It ended up costing them a combined $56 billion. It's not just happening to people who fall for phishing scams or use bad passwords. 37 billion records in 2022 alone got hacked, from major social media sites to national grocery store chains, cryptocurrency exchanges, pharmacies, and phone and internet providers. Look, unless you want to give up the internet for good, preventing your personal information from leaking could be out of your control. That's why we're excited about Aura, sponsors of this video. Aura's app uses AI and machine learning to protect your identity online. You tell Aura what email addresses, account numbers, and phone numbers you want monitored. Their algorithms scour the dark web, data brokers, public records, and alert you to any criminal activity fast. Aura's app features a VPN that encrypts your browsing history and allows you to stay anonymous online. Also has antivirus software that blocks malware and viruses before they infect your devices. Someone becomes a victim of identity fraud every 14 seconds. Don't be the next one. Let Aura do the hard work of protecting your identity. Adam and I were shocked to see how many times Aura found our personal information on the dark web. If you sign up for a free trial, let us know how many times Aura found your information for you. Try Aura for 2 weeks free and see if your personal identifiable information has leaked to the dark web. You can start your free trial at aura.com/insidethebirds. Protecting your personal data doesn't have to be hard. Try 14 days for free. That's aura.com/insidethebirds. Thanks to Aura for sponsoring this video. All right, big thanks to Aura for sponsoring that video and audio. Greg, let's talk about the Cowboys back end. You mentioned they played a lot of 3 safeties last year.
That was in base.
In
Obviously
base,
not in their sub,
right, in base. And then we know Trevon Diggs had one of those years where he had a ton of interceptions and turnovers, but he also gave up a lot of yards.
Beat a lot.
Yeah. So is that, do you think, going to be what Trevon Diggs is for his career? I mean, is he going to be that type of player, the gambler, the sort of, I don't want to say the Asante Samuel type because they're different, but, give up big play, but make big play type of guy?
I don't think we know that, but I think he's a player that needs a lot of technique work, because when you get beat a lot, normally if you're playing man, now there's multiple ways to play man. Press man is a certain kind of man. Off coverage man is a different kind of man. There's different ways to play man. I obviously have not watched every Dallas defensive snap, so I can't tell you specifically how he necessarily gets beat, but I do remember specific plays where his eyes were in the wrong place. If you're playing off coverage, eyes become really important. Press man is a whole different animal because your eyes should only be in one place, and that's on the receiver. But But Diggs, I think, has some technique issues. I think he's long, he's athletic, he's gifted, but I think he needs work on the sort of the nuances of playing corner in the NFL, because you know what? He's going against a lot of really good receivers, and if your technique is not sound, you're going to get beat at times. You know, when interceptions are an odd deal, there's very few guys who intercept 9-10 balls every single year for 4 or 5 years in a row. You know, he could have 2 interceptions this year and be a better player. You know, you don't know that.
It's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Greg, they have depth at corner. That's not the issue, but you mentioned Diggs. Calvin Joseph barely played. He played late in the season. He was a second-round pick. Anthony Brown's been there a long time. They got Jordan Lewis. What do you think of this corner group overall?
I think Joseph is the guy they would like to play opposite Diggs, because Joseph came from the SEC, came out of Kentucky. I believe he started his career maybe at LSU. And I know he's another guy that had some off the field issues based on what I was told, but he has man-to-man ability. He's a real, Joseph was drafted in the 2nd round, another guy that a lot of people thought wouldn't be drafted high because of his off the field, but his traits are such that he's a 2nd round value. He's a man-to-man corner. And I think they would love to have Joseph and Diggs be their outside corners and basically have Lewis be their nickel. I think that Brown has hung around, but I think Brown has always been a beatable player. And, just again, going by tape study, you guys know it's never personal. I think in an ideal world, they would like it to be Joseph and Diggs on the outside and Lewis in the slot.
Who was the one that the Raiders picked on pretty badly last year on that Thanksgiving game? Was that Jordan Brown or
Anthony Brown?
Anthony Brown that got picked on.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that was a tough game for him.
He gets picked on a lot,
right? Because you got Trevon Diggs opposite you, so they're going to try to throw it on you. How about their safety rotation that we talked about when they do it? They play Curse, they play Hooker. Who's the third safety in
Wilson? I think Donovan Wilson.
Well, Donovan Wilson was there last year.
Yeah.
They did lose. Who was there last year who they lost? My brain just went dead there on that. But Malik Hooker was a guy that obviously came out of Ohio State, really gifted athletically. He's had a lot of injuries, played last year for them, did not play in their base, rarely played in their sub. If he is kind of healthy now and ready maybe to reach the play to the ability that everybody thought he had coming out of Ohio State, he was a big time basketball player in the state of Pennsylvania too, coming out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
He was a great athlete. Again, he's been injured a lot, lower body injuries. Once you have lower body injuries, you never know. But I think they'd like him to be the free safety because he's got range and he's got athleticism. So, I think they'd like him to be able to play 60 snaps a game.
Yeah, it was I think KZ who Dan Quinn brought in.
That's right, and he's not there anymore. That's right. Yes.
Yeah. So, but boy, Greg, go over this roster. It sure sounds a lot better than I
They got a good roster.
Yeah,
they do have a very good roster.
Yeah. On that, before we get into the overall, there was one guy I still wanted to ask you about because I remember him kind of having a nice preseason, a big body guy, Nashawn Wright, the cornerback that they've got. Didn't you like him coming out of college a little bit?
Nashawn Wright, he's a Pac-12 kid, right?
I will tell you in a second. I know he's a bigger kid. Yeah, Oregon State kid, 6'4", 185. Yeah.
So he came out in 2021, right?
Yeah, he's real. Yeah, he's super long. In fact, when I was with them in training camp against the Rams, he was actually one of the tallest players on the field. In fact, Jeff's right. I remember you talking about him last summer.
Yeah.
So he came out in the 2021 draft?
Yeah,
yes.
3rd round pick.
I'm going to pull out my notes on him because I can't remember specifically about Nashawn Wright, but I just remember he was Pac-12 and then he was big. But let me see what I said about him because I remember I did do the kid, or maybe I didn't. I remember watching him, but I can't find my notes on him. But
that's okay.
So I don't know if he, if he's how they see him. I mean, look, Diggs is a big corner. Joseph's got good size. They obviously everybody likes big corners. I mean, that's just the reality. I mean, people do like big corners, so we'll see. But yeah, we'll see if he gets an opportunity. But Kelvin, I loved Kelvin Joseph's tape coming out of Kentucky.
Yeah.
I was told by someone in the know that he actually got kicked off Kentucky because he didn't play the last 2 or 3 games. So, we'll see what his, if he's a professional, as they say. But yeah, Diggs and Joseph to me would be a really good corner combination.
And Nahshon Wright could replace Anthony Brown in terms of depth because Brown is on the final year of his contract. So I could understand why they did that.
All right. We're going to finish this off with a couple of big picture questions about the Cowboys for you, Greg. First, we're going to hear for a word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And we're going to remind our audience to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. Now we'll pause for a word for our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. You will get a great deal. All right, so let's kind of round this out. They won the division last year. You seem to like a lot that they've got both offensively and defensively. Obviously, there are some question marks. Start with the offense. Do you still think this is a good offense, even with losing Amari Cooper? Do you think it has the potential to be better the way they've reshaped their offense a little bit?
I think there's some questions, though. I think their run game's a question, and I think their O-line's a question. So I think those are 2 meaningful question marks that we will not know the answer to right now. And I think their third receiver is a question. So I think there's meaningful questions here for the Cowboys on offense.
Okay, real quick on the O-line. We didn't talk about it. Tyron Smith, is the question about him just health? Is he still a very good left tackle when healthy, or are you seeing decline year after year, even when he's on the field?
I would say he's not what he was. I think the injuries have taken a toll. I think I don't think he's the same player.
Okay. That's interesting. Do you remember they drafted Matt Waletzko, right? No, they signed him. He was a North Dakota State kid, I think.
That was he was drafted.
Was he a draft pick?
I
5th round.
That's I didn't watch him.
Yeah,
I didn't watch
I was
him.
just curious. Yeah.
No, but Tyler Smith. But the thought, though, Jeff, is I mean, if they have their druthers once he's ready, Tyler Smith is very raw.
Right.
But their thought process was Smith would eventually replace Tyron Smith.
Mm-hmm.
But Tyler Smith is so raw, and I know they're going to cross-train him. You just really wonder, because you talk to 10 O-line coaches, they all seem to not agree on what he could be.
Right.
Certainly, he's talented. He's got upside, but you do wonder if he has to start. Greg was talking about it earlier. You wonder if he'll be ready to play guard in year 1.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got outstanding size, length, strength, movement, competitiveness. He's got all that stuff, but he doesn't really know how to play. And he played left tackle for Tulsa, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's got great arm length. He's got an incredibly long wingspan. I mean, he looks the part, but there's a lot of work to do with this kid. A lot of work to do. To me, he's not, and again, not that I'm Mr. Offensive Line Guru, but I don't think this kid's ready to be an NFL starter right now. That was my sense watching his tape.
I believe the quote you gave us back during the pre-draft process when we were talking about Tyler Smith was that he doesn't know what he's doing in pass protection. If I'm quoting you correctly, I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's what you said about him.
I may not have said it exactly that way because I don't think I normally talk that way, but I think that he doesn't have any sense of how to use technique. So maybe I did say it that way.
Maybe you said he doesn't know what he's doing with his hands or with his feet.
Yeah, I mean, his pass protection technique needs a major overhaul. I would say that based on his tape study that he lacks any discipline and refinement. There's kind of a recklessness to the way he pass protected. I think he relied on the fact that he's a big guy with nastiness and pretty good movement, but that's not enough in the NFL.
Gotcha. And Zach Martin still one of the best?
Yeah, he's a solid player for sure. Yeah, he's not an issue for them. No.
All right, cool. And so the defense overall, your view of this defense as it compares to last year and going forward.
I think it's a good defense. I think that if they're going to continue to play a ton of man, there'll be some times they get beat. I think they have a question some potential questions at linebacker when they go to their sub, depending on what they do with Micah Parsons, who I believe will rush the quarterback. And then, I think the corner opposite Trayvon Diggs, that's a training camp battle.
Sounds good. And overall, I mean, the Cowboys are trying to become the first team in 17 years, and it'll be 18, to win the division back to back. I know we haven't yet gone through the other teams with you, but you know what the other teams in the division look like. Do you still think this is the best 53 in the division?
I'd probably say no in response to that.
Ooh, okay. Nice. Really? We have a new best 53.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah, we'll get your opinion on that in a different way. Whenever we do the team, you tell me this is the team that I think has the best 53, because I think, I'm a journalist. I like a good cliffhanger. Okay.
All right.
Good stuff. Excellent. So, but you do think that do you still see them as a competitive playoff caliber?
Oh, without quite. I mean, okay. Yeah, they're certainly, yes. They've got a really good quarterback. So, that's always a good starting point. Yeah. But I don't think their overall roster makes them the best in the division. No.
Awesome. All right, that is our Dallas Cowboys 2022 preview with Greg Cosell. We will come back with another NFC East team next episode and get Greg's thoughts. So for Greg Cosell and Adam Kaplan, I'm Jeff Mosher. We thank our producer, Tyler Strasser, as we always do. He's doing a great job. And of course, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.